There we go. Otherwise, Andrew will kill me. All right, so our presenter tonight is Brian Hyde. He's the Business Development Community Outreach Officer with SONYMA. So he's actually been with SONYMA for 14 years. And prior to working for SONYMA, he worked for several lenders and mortgage companies since 1999. So he's been in the lending industry for a very, very long time. He's a former Westchester resident, has some roots in Westchester, family as well. And so his primary role at SONYMA is to act as an intermediary of information and processes between SONYMA and network of lenders and partners and affiliates. So what that means is basically Brian is the go-to person that loan officers and lenders go to. So for those of you that do know me and have heard me talk in the past before, I used to be in banking. And Brian and I actually became friends through our partnership because I used to do SONYMA. I used to actually originate SONYMA loans as a loan officer. So we'll talk a little bit about how that works if you are interested in applying for this product, because Brian does not do that for you, but he is a source of information and is someone you could actually talk to and has your best interest as a consumer. So without further ado, I am going to ask Brian to unmute and take us away.
Hello. Hi, everyone. As Judy mentioned, my name is Brian, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into the, the nuts and bolts of a SONYMA Veterans Loan. I'm going to talk a little bit about SONYMA, stay away from the boring stuff, but really get into, what the Veterans Program is, qualifications, how it benefits you, how you go about getting it, and, and take it from there. So can everyone hear me okay? Okay, I just want to make sure. So everyone can see the presentation? Okay, so I'll go ahead and continue. So I'll just give you a little bit information on SONYMA. So SONYMA's been around since the early 70s. It's something it's something that every state has in place. I'm not sure if any of you have ever heard of Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. SONYMA is kind of the same type of organization as those, but those are federal, and we're only something that's available in New York State. So again, we've been around since 1970, a long time, 50 years. And basically our goal and outcome is we want to put people in safe, affordable, and sustainable mortgage programs. Because one of the hardest things about homeownership or obtaining homeownership is that first step of needing all the capital, all the money for closing, down payment. Those are big barriers to homeownership, especially in New York State. New York State is high cost, especially Westchester. I'm sure, if any of you live in Westchester or the surrounding areas, if you're paying rent, you can pretty much afford a mortgage. But again, the hardest part is that startup money, capital for, down payment, closing, appraisal, and all that. SONYMA loans are available through a network of lenders. There's about 80 lenders statewide. The loan is consistent. It's uniform. So the loan program requirements, rates, process, it's the same from lender to lender. We set the requirements, the lenders have to follow it. If lenders that don't, they are penalized and sometimes suspended from the program if they don't follow those requirements. So for veterans, I'm not going to get into everything that we offer just because as veterans, you have the best of everything that we do offer. So as a veteran, you're always going to get the lowest rate. You're going to get down payment assistance. You have the ability to include renovation money. And you also have a unique feature. We have something that's available in Westchester. If you're buying a vacant home, 1, 2, 3, or 4 family, and no one's living there, you can also get $20,000 in free renovation money. If you keep the mortgage for 10 years, there's no repayment required. Okay, so the remodel, basically what the remodel is just, it's different from the neighborhood revitalization. A remodel in New York is just taking any money that you're financing and adding money for the cost of renovation improvements into the loan amount. For example, saying you're buying a $400,000 home, you want to get a new roof, basement, boiler, new appliances, you can tack on an extra $50,000 for that cost, and you're financing it over the term of that mortgage. Okay, down payment assistance. So this is a really unique feature of SONYMA loans for veterans. For veterans, this money is free, provided once you close, you keep the mortgage in place for 10 years. You get 3% of the sales price of the home, up to a maximum of $15,000. And this is where, so for people that aren't veterans or military, if they get a mortgage and a SONYMA loan and they elect to take the assistance, they're going to get an increase in their rate. So basically, they're paying more over that 30 years for that amount of money. Okay. Okay. So here's the income and purchase price limits. So what this means is that to be eligible for SONYMA, one of the things that you have to meet is income guidelines. So just to give you an example, for a 1 or 2 person household in Westchester, it's $150,960. And what we do is we base that on not what you've made in prior years, but what you've made at this point in year. For example, we just started 2021, so we would take your latest pay invoice, year-to-date earnings, and project it for the rest of the year. If it's in December, we would do the same thing. There are variations sometimes when we can sometimes not include income, or sometimes maybe there's something that usually isn't there. For example, saying you work in retail in December, you get overtime. We might be able to exclude that from the calculation, but include it in earnings. So there are sometimes little ways we can to get you below that limit. For 3 or more people, it's $176,120. And for New York City, it's a little bit lower. Maximum income's $136,440, and for 3 or more, it's $159,180. But while I am on this, I just want to point out that that unique program I was talking about with the $20,000 renovation money, if you are buying in Westchester or New York and you fall over these income limits, let's say you're at 175. If you find that vacant home, just because you're finding a vacant home, that specific feature would allow you to go up to over $200,000, but only in event when it's vacant. So just keep that in mind. We'll get into that again later in the presentation. These are purchase price limits. I think you'll see that they're well within the what the purchase price market is in Westchester, New York City. Single family, $679,840. 2 families, $870, and then 3 and 4 families, well up over $1 million. It's rare that we do these, and I know that the income limits don't really align with what these purchase price limits are, but you also have to keep in mind sometimes, every once in a while, we've had borrowers who maybe have saved up a lot of money, or maybe have 2 families buying together. So in those cases, they might be asset rich, but income could be below this amount and still be able to support that. So we do realize that they don't really line up with each other, but it's just something that we do have, for that's available too. And another big benefit with SONYMA is you get 120-day rate lock. So what that means is once you find a home, we're going to give the lender 4 months to close your loan. I would say the standard is usually 60 days, Judy. I think it's 60. Yeah.
But typically on a single family or multifamily, it can be anywhere between 30, 45, maximum 60 days, as long as everything.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So you're going to see, that's very generous in the industry. And another benefit is, let's say you're buying new construction. This doesn't mean it's not really to build from the ground up, but say that you're buying, say, conversion, a newer condo or co-op development, and you're buying and still being constructed. We're going to give you 6 months to close. So you can lock in your interest rates early. You get 6 months to close on that. So that's another nice benefit. Okay, and I'll go to the next one. Let's see. Okay, so homes for veterans. Again, this is where we're going to give you the best rate. So we have 3 tiers of interest rates. No matter what, veterans are always going to get the lowest rate. And they get that. Remember, we're waiving that interest rate increase on the decal. So again, you're getting that decal money at no cost. So essentially, you're getting, provided that you did keep the mortgage for 10 years, it's almost like free money. In a sense, it's sort of like a grant, but it's a loan that's being forgiven over a 10-year period. So for SONYMA We, this is where there's some differences between the actual veterans loan and the SONYMA We mortgage. SONYMA We mortgage and the veterans loan are two distinct and separate loans. They're not, they don't tie into each other. There's no association. So you wouldn't use your eligibility certificate. We don't need that. You just need a DD-214 or a military ID. It's good for active military, reserve, as well as veterans. Okay, again, this is military retirees, separate from service, again, active duty, National Guard, honorably discharged. And this is something, too, I want to mention. Let's say that, you're a veteran or active military, and maybe you have family, or maybe you just, for some reason, don't have the ability, or you don't want to be on a mortgage. If you're going to live in the home and you wanted to let someone else use this benefit, it would have to be someone that's, obviously a relative, someone that's close, someone you can document a relationship with. You can, let's say you have, a young son or daughter, they want to buy a home. They can use this military benefit and get everything that you get as long as you're going to be on title. You don't have to be on a mortgage. So that's another little benefit too. So we've done that a few times for veterans. Okay, this is, we're going to go back to the remodel. So basically what we're doing is renovation loan allows you to purchase a home and pay for the improvements. And depending on the type of improvements and, your circumstances, this can actually be a tax benefit because you can actually take that interest that you're paying for the cost of improvements and take it every year on your tax deduction, but that varies from person to person, but it's something to consider. Enables borrowers to incorporate additional repairs. Just so you're aware, you can also do something as simple as, just get appliances. Or maybe you want to modernize the kitchen, upgrade the windows, make it energy efficient. You can do all that. There's actually, the allowable type of repairs that we have, we're pretty accepting. The only things we won't allow is what we call luxury items, meaning you can't put in a hot tub, swimming pool, or tennis court. As long as it's going to add value or make an improvement, we'll allow it. So it's pretty extensive, the type of repairs that we'll allow. Okay, this is going back to one of what I think is the best programs that we have. This is the $20,000 renovation money. Okay, $20,000 for necessary repairs. You can also get the assistance. So if you think about it this way, let's say you get a $300,000 home, you can get $20,000 for repairs, and that assistance money for down payment and closing, you get 3%. So you get 3% of the asking price. That's $9,000. That's $29,000 right there. Before getting any other grants that you might be eligible for. Another positive thing, I think, if Judy doesn't get into this, you are allowed under SONYMA We to get as many grants that is available to you. If you can get a grant from a nonprofit in Westchester, I know that there are certain grants. You can get $25,000, say, from Westchester County. Maybe from the town or the municipality, you can get to $20,000 plus our assistance. You can sometimes, get into a home with, a lot less money than you would think. So it is possible. It's just, doing what you're doing now, doing your homework, looking to see what's available. So again, 1 to 4 family homes, they have to be vacant. Our definition of vacant is limited to no one's living there at the time of appraisal. So there's, there are certain exceptions. For example, if, you have a 2, 3 or 4 family and you have tenants there, but as long as the sellers aren't living there and you're going to occupy the home, something like that would be allowed. It's available throughout 26 communities. So, and that includes Westchester, New York City, and Long Island. And if you are looking for other parts of New York State, there's also other communities, Dutchess, Albany, and a lot of communities up north. Okay, why would some choose SONYMA We? Fixed rates, we talked about that. Okay, here are the rates. So I'm just going to go ahead and see this rate right here. Veterans are always going to get this no matter what. Oops, sorry about that. 2.625. That's a pretty good rate. And another good thing about SONYMA is we don't base the interest rate on what's called the risk-based pricing. A lot of conventional mortgages would, a lot of lenders are going to base the rate on non-veteran mortgages. They're going to base that rate based upon your credit score, your down payment, how much money you're putting down, sometimes even the property type. So those things sometimes can either, lead to a higher rate than you would expect. This is inclusive regardless of how much money you're putting down or the credit score. This is the rate that you're going to get. It won't change. Okay, loan down payment requirements. So for veterans, this is another benefit that you guys have. We do require 3% down payment on single-family homes. That includes condos, co-ops of 5. 10% on 3 to 4 family homes. 15% in some cases if you're getting like, the $1 million range. But as veterans, if you're getting all that grant money that we were talking about a minute ago, veterans can literally get in sometimes with little as 1%. So that's another unique. Non-veterans are always going to need a certain amount of money, more than 1% out of pocket for those higher dollar loan amounts. So that's another, that's something to keep in mind too. So again, this is what I was just referring to. This always applies to veterans, 1% minimum contribution. I'm not saying that everybody can get into that. A lot of times that will require getting, multiple grants, maybe a gift from a family member, or, or just other outside sources of money. But again, this 1%, this, if you're getting this SONYMA money and grants, it's very possible. This is the assistance. Okay, again, 0%, there's no monthly mortgage payment on that assistance. If you do the SONYMA mortgage, you automatically are eligible to take it. You don't have to meet a separate set of requirements. There's no separate application package. It's one and done. It's literally one form. You check off yes that you want it, and you're going to get that money at closing. You'll always get 3% of the asking price, up to $15,000. So if you do get a home that's over $500,000, you do max out at $15,000. Okay. Veterans, they're always exempt from the interest rate increase. Again, remember, it's veterans, active military, and okay, flexible source of funds. This is grants. We do allow seller concession, so you can get seller concession, grants, gifts. It has to be from a blood relative. Here's another unique thing about SONYMA. Let's say that some of you may not have a traditional credit history. You've never had a credit card. We do require an 18-month credit history. However, for people that don't have a credit history at all, or maybe they have what I would call a thin credit history, we'll go ahead and we'll allow you to use things like rent, cell phone payments, utilities, life insurance, cell phone, things like that we'll use. And as long as you can show a continuous 18-payment history over those 18 months on those references, you can substitute those type of alternative trade lines for the traditional credit history. So that's also something too that you can do. Yeah.
When I used to do SONYMA loans, one of the things really important is with non-traditional credit, it cannot substitute bad credit.
Yes. Yep. Good point. Yes, you can't use it for bad credit, and SONYMA is not a score-driven program. It's more. I'm not saying again. This doesn't mean you can have bad credit, but we're looking at the overall credit profile, not just a number. So we define good credit as having 18 months, 3 trade lines, 3 active or recently active trade lines. And trade line can be anything that shows an active credit reference: car loan, student loan, installment loan, credit card, store card, anything that shows, on-time payments over 18 months. We are a little bit flexible, on sometimes maybe if there were things that, due to unavoidable circumstances, hardships, things like that. So depending on what it is and, what it was for, sometimes there are slight, exceptions on that, that would be something that you would discuss with your lender. Flexible credit is what we just talked about, okay? Again, we don't go on credit scores. A credit score is important, but it's not the end-all, be-all judgment of if Sony May would grant somebody a mortgage. We're really going by we're trying to see just beyond the black and white. We're really trying to see just, someone that has a credit score of 800, they've maybe paid their credit card on time for 8 months. That doesn't mean that they're going to pay their mortgage on time for 30 years. So we kind of like to look at things in a different, from a different abstract perspective on that. Again, you can do a combination of traditional and non-traditional. For people, if you're buying with another person, that secondary borrow can have, they can have slightly less of a credit history. There's a little bit of flexibility on that. And next, let's see. Okay, processing time. I saw a lot of people, I'm sure you guys are wondering, how long does this take? So generally how the process works is at the time that you're ready to look for a home, meaning, you're actually going to go look at homes, negotiate, make offers. Once you actually make an offer on on a home, and you have an accepted offer, you're going to sign a sales contract. You go back to the bank. That's when the formal application process starts. That's when the clock starts ticking. The bank would go ahead and register your loan. And depending on that, banks, normal time frames, I want to say it could take anywhere from, 45 to 60 days. Keep in mind, depending if you're doing a renovation feature or, on the part of the state with COVID, there's still some parts of the state that are adjusting based on that. I would say right now it's about, I would say anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. If you're doing the renovation, I'd add about another 2 to 3. So you're looking anywhere from 2 to 3 months. And this is, I think, where Judy's expertise comes in. Remember I was talking about all that money that's out there? Well, you do, there's a couple in Westchester that attend to homeownership counseling. And this is where, you can see if you qualify, you can see where you're at, and also see if you qualify for whatever grant money that they administer. Did you want to maybe get into that, Judy?
Yeah. So 2 questions came up. I'm going to throw them at you now, actually. The first one is not required as a veteran to be able to apply for Sony May. I know Sony May does require that for the average homeowner. If you're a veteran, do you bypass the homeownership counseling?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Sure. The homeownership counseling that is required by Sony May for the average borrower, is that something that's waived for veterans? No,
it would have to be done. So it has to be done if you're putting less than 5% down, if you're taking the assistance, if you're doing a renovation, or if you're buying a multifamily and you're going to be a landlord. The only time when it's waived is if you're putting more than 5% down, or if you're doing a non-veterans loan. But keep in mind, just so you're aware, there are a lot of free options. Some organizations do charge, but there are also free ones that we will accept. So I want to make people aware that, it won't always cost you. We do have resources available for veterans that want the free option, if that's something that's, is a concern.
So the next question is, can you use Sony May? I believe this is how it's being asked. Can you use Sony May for short sales and foreclosure? How does that work?
Absolutely. As long as they can pass clear title from the seller to you, all we care about, as long as the home appraises, it's inhabitable, has a CO. It really, you have to keep in mind the short sale must be approved, and the foreclosure has to have gone through the legal process. But yeah, we're not even looking at it from a short sale or a foreclosure perspective. We're more or less just looking at it from seller to buyer. So.
The neighborhood revitalization program would be perfect then, right, for short sale and a foreclosure?
Absolutely. Yep. You're getting more house for less money. And another thing I forgot to mention is that if you're doing a renovation loan, remember, we're lending money based upon what the home would be worth after the repairs are made. The repairs are always going to be done after you buy the home. So That's something I didn't really get into. So basically what it is at the time that you're going through the purchase of buying a home, there's going to be someone that goes out to the home and determines what needs to be done. They do what's called the work write-up, and that work write-up is going to be used to document any appraisal. So that appraiser is going to say, hey, this home is worth, X amount of dollars once these repairs are made. We're lending money based upon that those are already there. So you're already moving into a home with so much equity. So you're already, for most people, they're already going to have a profit when they're going into that home.
So a couple more questions. So are there any restrictions to where a person can look for a home? So for example, if I currently live in Queens, but I'd like a multifamily home in Westchester, how does that work?
Nope, it doesn't matter where you're coming from as long as you meet the requirements and you're buying your primary home in New York State. It's available statewide. 1, 2, 3, and 4 family homes.
Next question, is it possible to have a one-on-one meeting with someone to figure out how this specifically works for my personal circumstance? So great question. Brian, in the beginning, I did mention that, and I know when I worked with you, Brian, consumers themselves would call you directly. Is that something that you're still doing?
Yeah, they can. In fact, we have an 800 number. Most calls do come to me. I mean, there's certain things I can't do. I can't qualify you. I have no way of saying that you're definitely qualified for SONYMA. I can't pull credit, and I can't really determine affordability. That's really the role of the lenders or the nonprofit, but I can definitely give you, a strong overview and get a good sense of, what you're going to, what to expect as you're going through the process.
And I think one of the reasons that Brian and I became such good friends is Brian would call me and say, hey, I have a loan officer that screwed something up. Can you speak to the client?
Yeah, right.
I am also a resource. If you guys have any questions, I've done these loans. There's like the new neighborhood revitalization is new. So I mean, default to Brian as well, because Brian, actually at the time I was doing the loans, they were not available in Westchester. So I'm so excited that Westchester residents can now take advantage of that. But there's also your loan officer. So right now, the top SONYMA originating lenders, because remember again, Brian is not he's not a lender. He's just part of the New York State mortgage agency. He's a rep. And so the lenders that are actually doing these loans, right, who the majority of them who do the loans is MNC Bank, Freedom Mortgage, Loan Depot, Bank, and Evolve Bank and Trust. So you want to make sure that because it doesn't already sound quite complicated, it can be a little overwhelming on the side of the loan officer. So you want to make sure you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing. So those things like meeting with somebody, you can definitely use myself as a resource, Brian as a resource, and obviously your loan officer. If you want to just confirm that your loan officer is actually giving you information that's legit or, that makes sense, then definitely we can, double back on the resources that we're giving you today. I will also share in the email after tonight the 1-800 number. So if you guys want to give Brian a call afterwards. If you want to stop, I'm going to stop your screen share, Brian, to call back.
Yeah, I was actually just going to, go to the website real quick just to show them the NRP. It won't let me though. I'm sorry?
You want to stop sharing and re-share again? I have some other questions.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So one of the questions was, can I sell before the 10 years? How does the repayment work with the DPAL?
Okay, so the DPAL so again, there's no monthly payment and it's forgiven over 10 years. So to keep this simple, let's say that you get $10,000. You close on January 5th, 2021. So basically what that is that $10,000 is slowly being forgiven, or it's self-depreciating over 10 years. Let's say that in 5 years you decide to upgrade, refinance, or sell the home. For whatever reason, you're gonna pay this mortgage off. At 5 years into it, you pay back $5,000. So you're never going to pay back the full 10. It's never going to be the full amount. It's slowly depreciating. And it's basically what it is that money that you received, it's broken up over 120 months. So basically we would take 10,000 divided by 120. That's the amount that's slowly going away each month. So you're never going to pay back the full amount. And in certain circumstances, we would waive it. It's very most people don't get the advantage of it because a lot of times when you do sell, there's a lot of equity home. But in the case where you have to bring money to closing or you're selling the home at a loss, the DPAL could be forgiven. But that's, again, that's something that's not, most people don't get, but, it has happened from time to time.
Okay, so another question that came up was, is VA and SONYMA the same?
Is what?
The VA loan and SONYMA loans, are they the same?
No, there's actually, so a VA loan is a little bit different than SONYMA. So the VA is basically a federal agency. What they're doing is they're telling lenders, hey, if you are willing to give veterans a mortgage, we're going to insure them to you that in case they default, we will cover the loss. SONYMA is a little bit different. We're actually lending you the money through a network of banks. So after you close with that lender, we're actually sending them the money, and then we're what's called purchasing the loan from them. So with SONYMA, with 80 lenders, it's going to be the same rate, the same requirements, the same process. The slight variance with that is that renovation feature that I was talking to. A lot of lenders don't offer that. Renovation lending isn't it's not done by a lot of lenders. It's a very specialty form of lending in the industry. So with that, you definitely would want to check the website, see what lenders are offering it. So out of our 80 banks, we have less than 10 that do the renovation feature. Going back to the VA, so there are some other differences on a VA loan. You have what's called the VA funding fee. SONYMA doesn't charge that, and I do know that with certain veterans, based upon a disability or if you served, I believe if you did a tour, it sometimes waives. I'm not sure, every circumstance that waives that. On a veterans loan, you also can't do renovations. You can't do any improvements, no fixing features available. SONYMA does. Another difference on the veterans loan is that, if on a veterans loan, regular veterans loan, VA loan, if you go to 5 different lenders, you can actually, get different terms and different rates. So they may not be significant, but it is possible. Lenders are allowed to apply their own rules. Sometimes they can change what the VA will offer you. Sometimes they do have allowed to put additional restrictions on top of those rules. So that's something to keep in mind. SONYMA doesn't allow that. However, getting back to what SONYMA, there is always a down payment required with SONYMA. You do have to have your own money into it. You do need good credit. And there is PMI. That's the question I always get a lot. So PMI is there. However, if you want, you can get rid of that PMI with that assistance I was referring to. The 3% of the sales price, you can use it either towards closing, down payment, or towards a one-time insurance premium, which again, this doesn't cost you anything out of pocket. So you pay that premium, and that PMI portion in your mortgage payment is completely gone. You'll never have to worry about it again. So that's something to think about too, if that's one of your concerns.
Got a bunch more questions for you. So I believe I'm going to word it a little differently. So just let me know if I've got this wrong. If I wanted to live in a multifamily, let's say up to 4 units, and live in one of the units, is that possible, and rent out the other 3?
Absolutely, it's encouraged. Yeah, yes, you can. And you can also, so you can actually get pre-approved getting what's called potential rental income. So we will allow 75% of the gross market rent for each unit. We will actually allow a lender underwrite the loan as if that income is already coming in. So yes.
So, just wanted to add something. I can't remember if you mentioned this at all, but co-op is something also that you can do with SONYMA.
Oh, yes.
Veteran.
Yep.
The VA
So yes, Sony May, three good things about Sony May with co-ops. We're pretty flexible in the guidelines, so co-ops have to meet certain requirements. We're pretty flexible on that. We'll allow a lower down payment. Most lenders do require larger, anywhere from 10 to sometimes up to 30% down. We only require 5. And we do allow renovation lending. So let's say you buy a co-op, it's in disrepair, it needs, just some work, or you just want to get appliances. We will allow you to include money for repairs on that. And that's something that I've never even heard of in the industry until we started allowing it about a year ago.
2 more questions. Does Sony May offer any refinance options?
No.
And how does Sony May impact the VA certificate of eligibility?
There's none. We don't need it. It doesn't matter if you have it or not. We only require either a DD-214 or your military ID.
So, as I said in the beginning, one of the things that we'll do is this is being recorded, and there's a lot of information. These kinds of presentations are hard because there's still a lot of little nuances of Sony May
right.
that are going to come up. You're going to have questions about. So, the follow-up email I'll send to you guys with Brian's contact information. Were you able to pull up the website, Brian?
Yeah, it won't.
Okay. I'll make sure to include that along with the follow-up workshop so you guys can take a look at that. There's a lot of information in there. I know as a loan officer, when I used to do Sony May loans, I actually used to go to the Sony May website. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, here it is. Okay.
Loan officers, and you could go in there. So everything about Sony May is right on their website. There's nothing hidden. It's a little bit of a maze, but at least.
Yeah, I'll go to the main page. I'll start there. So this is easy. So it's really, so you could just go to sonymay.org, and it will change in the web page. Don't pay attention to that. That's just because we're under the umbrella of the organization that we are. There's actually 9 different housing agencies. Don't pay attention to that. But everything's here. So really, it's here. Programs, the features. So those are like those little, the down payment assistance, the renovation rates. So this is, I would say, the 2 most important things for you would maybe be going here: preparation, eligibility, how to apply, and in here, this is our lenders. And some of these numbers are a little old, but you can see on this, we actually break it down so you can see a lender, how many loans they've done, their ranking, and their contact number. So as you can see, for Westchester, Loan Depot is one of the top lenders. Number of loans, 61. Average processing time is 39 days. That's actually pretty remarkable, considering, the number of loans that they've done. M&T is 39. Some lenders do take a little bit longer, but it doesn't always mean that it's something that was a result of, a lender not doing something correctly. Sometimes there are things that are beyond the control of the lenders, sometimes with the appraisal, title, sometimes there's legal problems they're working on with the attorneys. So, just keep that in mind when you are looking at the lender list. And I'll go back to the fun stuff with the renovation.
The nice thing about Sony May is that, it does sort of give you at least an idea. That relationship you build with your loan officer is still very critical, it's so important. And like Brian said, I worked for 2 different lenders when I was doing Sony May loans, and I pride myself in, transparency, but my particular lender, however, had some hiccups in getting the process going. So even though I found myself to be a good loan officer, I still, there was parameters that were hard to navigate through. So it doesn't mean that the loan officer you're working with is necessarily a bad loan officer. It's just, how soon you'll close sometimes.
Okay, so one thing I want to point out is I didn't really get too much into it, but the type of improvements you can do. All this right here is everything that's there, and it doesn't include everything. This is just kind of like a general list. Keep in mind though, if you are doing a renovation loan, there, especially a foreclosure or short sale, usually there are problems with those homes. The things that would have to be, one thing that has to be corrected first are any outstanding health and safety items, violations, those are the first. That takes priority over anything that. But, after that's done, or let's assume that there's nothing there, you can go in with your own wish list. You can make this your Christmas present. All this stuff here can get done. And again, this, one thing that we do allow is, installation of appliances. That's a nice thing, make it energy efficient. Even though we don't allow for to put in a pool, you can repair an existing. You're probably not going to see that too often in Westchester, but, it's not unheard of. But, you can get a little creative on this. So just, this is just something I wanted to show you. Again, this has to be vacant home, and I'll go back and show you all the counties that it's available in. So it's Albany, Bronx, Broome, Dutchess, all of Long Island, all of New York City, Rensselaer, Sullivan, Ulster, Westchester. So in case you are looking to go a little further up north, you have some, there's some additional availability of money for up there.
Great. That's wonderful that it's in Westchester now. So just to reiterate, this is a product for first-time home buyers. However, veterans do get that waiver. So
yes, I didn't even mention that. That's one of the most important things. As veterans, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. That's completely waived. And just in case you're wondering, a first-time home buyer is defined per SONYMA as someone who hasn't owned or lived in their primary residence in 3 years. And, you'd actually, there's actually a lot of scenarios with that. Let's say that you were recently married, you're going through a divorce, you haven't lived in the home in 5 years, but say that, your spouse still lives there, is going through the process. We would actually allow that to be waived in certain things. But again, for veterans, it's completely waived.
So there's a question about home buying education. So if you were a homeowner years ago and want to jump back into, because we've had scenarios like that before where people used to own, sold, maybe they downsized, or maybe they relocated and owned property in the past, but it's been a while and things have changed in terms of terminology. Highly recommend home buyer education in general, always, just so you can protect yourself, because in a 10-year period, I can't tell you how many changes there have been to the process in terms of lending. So it's sometimes just good refresher anyways to see like kind of what that process is. There are a number of nonprofit organizations in Westchester County. Just a few: Westchester Residential Opportunities, WRO, they're out in White Plains; Housing Action Council, they're out in Terrytown; Housing Development Services of Westchester, they're out in Portchester; and then you have Community Housing Innovations, they're out in White Plains. There's also online homebuyer education. I believe a lot of these guys have sort of transitioned to remote.
Yeah, a lot of them are Zoom now. Almost, in fact, I think it's almost 100%.
Yeah.
So
definitely share that information with you. What do you have there? Do you have the?
So, yep, I do have a list. This isn't exclusive to. I'm sorry, inclusive of the entire state, but this is just some that we have really strong partnerships with. For Westchester, one of them is CHI, but again, I think you mentioned Housing Action Council. Yeah. And WRO, so you can also go there, but this is just, we have them. They are, because for each region of the state where we have the neighborhood revitalization for the 20,000, we did select a partner where people can actually go, and they're going to get they're a little bit. So this organization should be a little bit more knowledgeable and guide you through the process a little bit better than some of the others, just because they're more familiar with it. They were there from when we launched it from the beginning. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. So a lot of this stuff, like I said, we'll send in a follow-up email to you guys. The other thing too is if you work with a nonprofit organization, they don't charge, they're free, and they can also help provide you with some support throughout the process as well. And they can also connect you to down payment assistance programs. So like Brian said at the very beginning, he's just focusing on May grants. There are no restrictions to any other down payment assistance programs that you can use. So there are a number of grants out there. Information I'll share with you as well. There are some very specific to veterans as well from that. My goal at some point is to do a workshop just solely talking about grants. So keep an eye out for that. We'll send some notifications via email about those upcoming. So they're in the works. We're still just trying to finalize our speakers for that. But what is important to understand with those grants is that you need to make sure you qualify for the most restrictive in order to maximize the number of assistance that you're going to get. So again, myself, Brian, and your loan officer and your nonprofit organization in the housing era, in the arena, then I'll provide you with support through the SONYMA process. So.
Yeah, Judy, actually, one grant that I've actually suggested to people, I've actually had, you told me about it, the Penn Fed Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had 8 people that got it just for calling in here. They asked me if anything I knew. Some of them actually got it. They didn't end up doing SONYMA, but they actually did call me back to say that they did get it. And from what they said, it was a pretty easy, seamless experience. So that's just something right there.
Yeah, Penn Fed Foundation, that's been around forever. I had a couple of ours that were veterans.
So you never know.
I would say that is probably the most restrictive in terms of income. So if you qualify for Penn Fed, you're good to go with a lot of other ones.
Yeah, yes, yep.
All right, guys. So we are going to, and unless there's any other last minute questions that anyone has, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you.
Okay, no problem, Judy. Yeah, share my information, email, call. I'm here, 5 days a week.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay. All right, thanks. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.